Just to make you save that money, I would say to wait it out a bit and do some kind of other qualifying transaction.
Yes. And I am the lucky Clarence Hendrickson. Walk!
Oh, happy birthday, Mr. Hendrickson. And good luck in our Christmas promotion. You seem to be a lucky man.
Oh, wow.
That was actually our birthday winner, guys.
Yeah,
And I
he's
see
looking
on the
forward.
live,
He's
I
looking.
see Joycelyn won. Justin is commenting. Joycelyn actually won one of our $1,000 Christmas prizes last year. So Joycelyn knows how this goes for sure.
Okay. Well, as much as we would love all these callers to be entertained, we have a next program we have to break away
No
for.
problem.
And so I give you the last words to just wrap it up.
I'm just going to encourage everyone to look out and stay focused on what Digicel is offering. There is a lot coming down the pipeline. I want to thank all of our very loyal customers. I see one comment in here. Her name is Sheeby Harris. Sheeby, you're going to hear about that treasure hunt very, very soon because we increased the cash prize. But you're going to hear about it. And of course, participate in the sale today. Download the apps and make sure that you use them because they are incredible and they can give you something to do every day, every time, every hour, they're just phenomenal.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming in
everybody.
and bringing some joy early November into December. So, guys, you heard it there. Make sure that you download BIP. There's so much information there that you can get, you can do, and be involved. And, of course, not forgetting those winnings now. It's Digicel.
Digicel, you know it's a vibe, brand new life is a promise. Steady striving for more, no more limitations. Passionate communication, reaching every heart to the generations. Innovation all for the community, proud to bring unity. It's a movement with a new source of energy. This is what free don't feels like.
Join ZIZ Television every
All right, the time in the studios of ZIZ Radio, 7 minutes down after the hour of 11 o'clock, and it's that time for some Frank and Candid. Mr. Blake is in the building, so I'm going to turn that over to him right now. You stick and stay.
As per usual, we pause to say thank you, Lord, for your blessings on us and for being so kind as to grant us another day in the land of the living. Today, of course, Friday, 20th November 2020, is International Children's Day. We celebrated with delight yesterday International Men's Day. And I'm glad that I was able to finish the day with on a winning note. My team, the team for which I play, in the domino competition, Montreal Farms domino competition, we won the game we played against the opponent, and so it was a very refreshing note on which to end, on which to end a day which was filled with a lot of activities geared towards men. We were also able to visit the oldest male in St. Kitts, and we had a good time there with centenarian Mr. Connor Soho, and the men's council we were able to communicate with him, to converse with him, to dialogue with him, to learn from him. And so we were happy to be a part of that exercise. In the studio today, I have with me Reverend Peter Paul. Reverend Peter Paul. And as I was saying to him a while ago, with a name like that, one does not expect him to do anything but to be in full service of Jesus the Christ. He is going to be sharing the studio with Officer Lofton Percival, who is yet to arrive. We expect him at any moment now. And these two gentlemen are going to be talking to us about boys, training boys to be men on today, International Children's Day. Training and raising boys to be men. I'm sure that Eli X in particular, would be interested in this conversation, because he laments a lot. We have too many males and not enough men. So we are training boys who are males already by virtue of their biological makeup. They are males. Now we want to convert them into men. Reverend Paul, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
You go right ahead. We're going to open the lines after you've made your intro.
Yes, good morning, radio audience. Count it a pleasure to be with you this morning, and I really do appreciate the opportunity and understanding, of course. In these times, we do need to continue to give all we can for the well-being of our boys. I want to begin with two of my favorite quotes, and they have been for me a support as I continue to give my services to the boys, and really encouraging me all along the way. And they go something like this. The first one is, tie a boy to the right man, and he almost never goes out. And he almost never goes wrong. Tie a boy to the right man, and he almost never goes wrong.
Okay.
Secondly, no man stands so tall as when he stoops to help a boy. No man stands so tall as when he stoops to help a boy. Now, this morning, understanding the theme, of course, raising or training our boys into manhood, is quite an extensive theme. It is very deep in context. It carries with it a spiritual context, of course, that I wish to share a little with you. And we're going to be sort of looking at some of the challenges that boys are facing today, and that we men, continue to battle against, of course, as we seek to better the well-beings of our boys. And then finally, we are going to be sharing with you some mechanisms that we can implement so as to help us on our way in making sure that we really connect our boys to the right men. And this is very, very important. And that we continue to stoop, reaching them at their level, to help elevate their lives in their pursuits as they grow in development, socially, spiritually, educationally, intellectually, as they grow into manhood. I want therefore to share with you one of my objectives this morning, and that is to help us to transform our boys from immature and flighty youngsters into honest, caring men who will be respectable of women, loyal and faithful in marriage, keepers of commitments, strong and decisive leaders, good workers, and men who are secured in their masculinity. I want to bring to your attention a scripture passage, St. Luke chapter 13, and it really speaks to the life of the farmer who is expecting fruit from under the leaves of his fig tree. And the scenario here is that just as the farmer reaches out and making sure that there is fruit from that tree, so too God expects fruit from our lives as men. The result or the product really is that inner working of God in our lives, and it must be visible. And since we belong to Him as men, God has a right to expect fruit from us. So the question is, what is that fruit? It is manhood. Manhood is the fruit. Now God wants us to produce this manhood in all men, not some men, all men. And what kind of manhood? Christ-likeness. Christ-likeness. So this is what we need to be producing. Christ-likeness. So let me give you a very layman's definition of the term manhood. Manhood is the transformation of character resulting in the fruit of Christ-likeness. Manhood is the transformation of character resulting in the fruit of Christ-likeness. So we have both working side by side, and therefore the only way to develop true manhood is through Christ-likeness. Now let me just bring to your attention some challenges that our boys are facing with today, and we really need to do much more than we have been doing as men. Boys are experiencing what is called a crisis of confidence that reaches deep, way deep into their lives. Secondly, we have the breakdown of families and the absence of disengaged fathers. Thirdly, we have the consequent wounding of spirits, and this is as a result of abuse, neglect, and such like. Fourthly, we have the media and the entertaining industry are also responsible for some of the assaults that our boys day to day continue to battle against. Fifthly, we have the devaluing of our boys and our fathers by the behavior we see in culture today. So culture plays a very plays a role here as well as some of the challenges are concerned. We also have the feminist attack on our masculinity and the post culture that is twisting and wrapping the lives of many of our boys. And therefore, with these few challenges, they are very weighty in themselves, and therefore it calls for action. So what are some of the actions? Because we need as fathers, we need as men to influence our boys for the good. Now 2 Timothy chapter 2 and verses 1 and 2 speaks to this very important influence. Paul speaking to his son Timothy, spiritual son, mentor. He was his mentor, Timothy his mentee. Timothy, his disciple. Paul was speaking to him and sharing with him of that very important influence. And it really says to us that we save our boys by giving them a model to follow. That's number one. They must be given a model to follow. One psychologist puts it this way. He says, the curse of fatherhood is distance. The curse of a fatherhood is distance. So we need to provide modeling on which our boys can build their masculine identities. Our priestly challenge is to find God's way to develop the lives of our boys. So the modeling begins by women modeling the life of the priesthood. My friends, there is a priest in every home. The important thing for us is to really apply and align ourselves to that responsibility. This is one of the most effective tools of teaching our boys. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 7 and 10. Chapter 6, verses 1 to 7 speaks to this. Now, because God is committed to fathering sons through the ministry of the pastors, so too we must be committed to fathering sons through the ministry of the priesthood. It is a ministry for us as men, because one of the greatest incentives for our boys is to gain a life of prayer. A life of prayer. So therefore, we must take our responsibility seriously, our spiritual responsibility seriously, and to congregate with our boys. The combined assignment here is that we need as priests to pour ourselves out, as priests to our sons, pour ourselves out, and we needed to teach our sons to do the same, boy to boy. Because you know what? Manhood isn't a talk. Manhood is a life, and it must be lived before our boys. So number one, the modeling speaks to modeling the life of the priesthood. Secondly, we need to model family life. We need to model family life before our boys. And we do this by instructing, passing on, transmitting instructions to our boys. And when we think of instructions, we think of specific instructions, and that is the substance of our responsibility. 1, to affirm, 2, to recognize, and 3, to celebrate our son's journey into manhood. To affirm, to recognize, and to celebrate our son's journey into manhood. And as we think of instructions, therefore, it is important that based on these instructions, we need to teach moral purity to our sons, chastity, responsibility, accountability, family life, integrity, purity. Teach moral excellence. And I can go on and go on. But it is important that we understand that Scripture alludes to this very important responsibility. Proverbs, many times you would hear the wisest man who ever lived speaks to the sons. And because the fathers would have instructed the sons, and so must we. So may our male audience today, let us model family life, because a close-knitted family is what keeps boys grounded when the world is urging them to break loose. And we have many of our boys today, they have already broken loose. And we needed to really get this, rather connect or reconnect ourselves to our boys who have broken loose for whatever reason or reasons. So secondly, we need to model family life. Thirdly, we needed to model mentorship. We need to model mentorship. The heart of the mentor is a teaching heart. And I repeat, the heart of the mentor is a teaching heart. The mentor's function is not only modeled through the pages of the Bible, but it is a command given to us in the form of teaching them to observe and to disciple them. So modeling speaks to discipleship, and therefore our masculinity speaks to the whole idea of initiating. So masculinity actually means to initiate. To be masculine is to take initiative. And we day by day, we fight with the term or with the concept being macho. But many men have yet to take that initiative. Initiative to provide direction. Initiative to provide security. Initiative to make sure that our boys are stable. Initiative to make sure that the order of the day is understood by our boys. Masculinity means to lead, to head, to husband. And when we do this, when we take the initiative and we make sure that our boys know what the order is, and secondly, they align their lives, of course, based on the orders given, the instructions given, then we will be proud of ourselves. And of course, we will be proud of our boys. And fourthly, we need what is called father and son identification. Father and son identification. Identifying with our boys is far more efficient, is a far more efficient teacher than lecturing to them, than scolding them, than punishing them. We need that boy and man identity. So we must be able to identify with our boys. And there is a fourth commitment we need to make, and this goes to the church. The church must revisit its mission and ministry for boys and men. Two reasons. One, because men's ministry are underdeveloped or they're lost. Secondly, men's character are underdeveloped or they're weak. And therefore we needed to make sure that we revisit our men's ministry and our boys' ministry, making sure that we know exactly what we're doing and that we commit ourselves to the vision that God has given to the church. So we need to find a program that begets son. And we do so by establishing a pattern and a program of discipleship for men and boys. We needed to bring a biblical focus on husbanding and fathering. We need to guide our men and boys into service and ministry. As a matter of fact, as I sit here, I think of the responsibility of the priest. And of course, one of the responsibilities of the priest is not only to pray, but likewise to make sure that the altar is also provided for the altar boys. And therefore we needed to include our boys into the altar, the family altar, and make them responsible, of course, whether reading the scripture, whether saying their little prayers. We need to make sure that they are part of the family altar. And therefore, finally, I want to look at some of the mechanisms. One, men, we need to begin with self-examination. Self-examination. Making sure that our character, of course, at the end of it all, produce the Christ-likeness that Christ expects of us. Secondly, we need to make sure that we apply ourselves. Our leadership is one of confidence. We need the application of confident leadership and discipleship and mentorship, tempered by compassion and love. And I repeat, tempered by compassion and love. Third mechanism, we need to learn to maximize manhood and stop modeling manhood. A lot of talks. We need more action. Fourthly, we needed community engagements. We needed what I would call the adoption program. We implement adoption programs because we have boys who really needed that fatherly touch, that fatherly connection. They have lost their fathers for whatever reason, and we needed to sort of adopt them into some mentorship program. so that we can give them the necessary help they need. I continue. We need to recall and reposition our elderly men who once were at the gates, really taking charge. We need to recall them. We need to reposition them at the gates. Fifthly, we need to take regular checkups to become more like Christ in all our ways. We need, sixthly, to develop trust-building activities. Trust-building activities, because many of our men, young men that is, they don't trust us as adults. We need likewise to focus on redemptive solutions. We need also to be team-oriented. This calls for togetherness, an inclusive package where we can all, as community men, really work together. We need likewise to lead by example. We need likewise to celebrate success stories. But in celebrating success stories, we must be committed to significance and not just success. Significance. In other words, we need to make sure that we train our boys. We help to develop the lives of our boys, making sure that they make a difference in their own given community. And finally, we need to become spiritual parents. We need to become spiritual parents. So I trust today, it's a very deep subject matter. It really calls for greater commitment. So I trust today that, the brief sharing would really give some enlightening to us, and a sort of motivate us to continue to do, those of us who are on the path, continue to do what we're doing, but let's get better with it. And for those who have yet to really come in the circle, to join the circle, as we seek to make sure that our boys grow into manhood and bringing out the best that God so desires.
Thank you, Pastor Paul. And ladies and gentlemen, we of course are the pastorship of Reverend Peter Paul coming out. What we just had was essentially a sermon, or a sermonette, you may wish to describe it. But he mentioned quite a number of things which we perhaps might consider to be a bit of an overfeed in this short space of time. Perhaps we did not have enough time, Reverend Paul, to accommodate and assimilate all this information, because it flowed rather swiftly. So allow me to repeat a couple of points that you made for the benefit of the audience. We are looking at the need to train and raise boys to be men. Of course, today is International Children's Day, but Pastor Paul here is focusing on boys in particular, not children in general, because I believe a lot of us would agree that there are quite a number of programs and facilities, a number of strategies have been developed to assist girls in particular. And we believe that by and large we have a girl-friendly, female-centered society. So he's focusing on boys today, raising and training boys to be men. To be a man is different from being male. We need to emphasize that. All right. No effort is needed for male to exercise malehood. It's automatic, as it were. But to be a man, it means that deliberate efforts, deliberate attempts, deliberate strategies have to be carved and created in order for boys to move from being mere males to being men. It's like females, Not all females are ladies in my books. All females grow up as adults to be women. But I believe that ladyhood is a step above mere womanhood. The same thing here, we want males to transform themselves into becoming real men. Now, what are the characteristics of a man as opposed to just being ordinarily male? Now, Pastor Paul went through quite a list. I wish we had time for him to revisit that, because in my mind they offer some profundity, some depth as to the kinds of concepts that we as adults, parents, need to consider in order to lead our boys in particular in a certain direction. But he emphasized that we need to point children to Christ. Christ, of course, being the epitome and the ultimate exemplar of manhood. And I fully subscribe to that theory, to that view. Pastor Paul would have said, or did say, that boys suffer from a crisis of confidence, dysfunctional families, absentee fathers, wounding of the spirit, which I interpret to mean emotional abuse. I agree with him that one of the factors that contribute to boys remaining as mere males is the toxic content of much music and entertainment. The music and entertainment industry must re-examine itself and to see to what extent is it contributing to males not being transformed into men. Connected with this, of course, then, is the devaluing of manhood by the media. And he also described what he termed the feminist assault on men. And we realize that ever since the days of women liberation back in the 70s, we have seen, commensurate with the rise of women in the workplace, in society, in positions of authority and power, and so on, we cannot deny that there has been a commensurate diminishing in the functioning and the success of the family in general. But I want to ask Pastor Paul, how do we address men who are irreligious, men who are skeptics, men who might even be atheists? Because a lot of your presentation, of course, was Bible-centered, had a spiritual basis, a moral premise. What of men who don't subscribe to that theory? What is the role of social institutions in changing boys into men, and not just males? And what is the role of discipline? Now, I don't know if you have time to answer all of those questions, but I'd like you to think about that. What of men who are irreligious at best? What is the role of social institutions in general? And what is the role of discipline in converting boys, training and raising boys into real men? You also said, so you can think about that for a response. We open the lines, of course. You're free to call us at 465-2555. Talk to us about what we need to do to get our boys become not just males, but men. Men need to self-examine, men need to self-reflect, and men need to introspect. We need to exercise compassion, and I to refer to the Dalai Lama, who once described religion as, the essence of religion as being compassion in all life, and compassion for all life. This matter of compassion is fundamentally critical to our existence. And I believe a lot of problems which we experience, we can trace them back to a lack of compassion. We must engage with the community. What are some of the solutionary actions? We must model appropriate behaviors. We must offer masculine identities. We must promote Bible-based principles, focus on the spiritual dimension of man, and stress morality in our behavior. We must affirm, recognize, and celebrate our boys as they journey through and to manhood. We must provide mentorship, enable them to take initiative in doing that which is right. The role of the father is specific. The role of the father should take central prominence in this respect. And we must celebrate success stories. Quite a mouthful if you ask me. I think it needs time to digest. I think it needs time to circulate so that we can begin to enjoy the benefits of what Pastor Paul would have presented. But call us and ask us questions if you wish. Discuss with us some of what was said. How do we get our boys to become real men? So, Pastor Paul, how do you approach men who have no time for God? The Bible describes them, of course, those who do not believe in God, as being fools. But they have children as well.
Yes.
We would hope that their children do not follow in their folly. But how would you suggest we deal with men like those?
Well, for sure, we do have the church, and we have the schools, for example, who can provide that sense of understanding.
Well, it would be a contradiction of terms to say that there is a pastor or a reverend or minister who is an atheist, right? That's a fundamental contradiction of terms. But we might very well have teachers, and we do have teachers, who are irreligious.
That's right.
So how do we... So I'm not sure if the school might be the best, one of the major social institutions through which we can address this, because like I said, bear in mind we might have individuals like those. And you know, when we experience certain drawbacks, certain setbacks, certain disasters, certain diseases, a lot of people begin to question, where is God?
Where is God? Yes.
And some people actually lose their faith and no longer believe that he exists, because they figure, hey, if God is there, he's great and powerful, he's in control of all things, why is he allowing so much suffering, especially to be inflicted on innocent people, including babies and children, and old, frail and feeble people? So, again, the question is, what's your approach to those kinds of individuals?
Well, one thing for sure, there is no greater tool than live by example. That in itself is a powerhouse. Action speaks louder than words, and of course, when that life is portrayed before the eyes, and sometimes so, even though those persons may appear, may even verbalize, that such is the mindset, but no doubt sometimes some of them, they from within, there is some inner workings which would result in some visible what I would call transformation later down the road. So we live by example. Number two, especially in regards to not only the individual lives but the family life. Make sure that the family life, because we do find in many homes where for example, the father stands out, but not the children, not the wife. And so we must make sure that the entire family, likewise, live by that example, live by that same principle. Secondly, we need to reach out to those persons. And of course, culture I know has a lot to do, culture I know has a lot to say. But we must be able to sort of provide that kind of environment that would really speak to that mindset. And do so in such a way not to condemn, not by condemning, not by bashing, but again with compassion, with love, and however long it's going to take, however painful it might be even for us, as we stand before those type of persons, and yes.
Because we cannot deny, first of all, we cannot deny that there are some irreligious persons, some persons who never set foot in a church,
yeah.
Who never they don't own a Bible, they will never open a Bible, they don't read the Bible, they don't believe in the Bible, so to speak. And some of them, generally, they exhibit better behaviors than a lot of Christians,
yes.
whose record is one of shame and scandal,
yes.
including pastors.
Yes.
So the argument is that one doesn't necessarily have to be religious or even spiritual in order to be a good model for his child, because there are some persons, like I said, who don't necessarily subscribe to the religious theory, yes. Whether it be Christianity or Baha'i or Hinduism or whatever it is, but they teach their children honesty,
yes.
the virtues and values of honesty, of compassion, of industry, you need to work well and work hard, of respect,
yes,
and all of that. But these are persons who do not necessarily go to church. And at the same time, I've been a teacher all my life, and I've known some persons who occupy senior positions in church and so on, in leadership positions in the church, and when they come to the school, you wonder, where is the Holy Spirit or the fruit of the Spirit?
Yes.
Because they come in an aggressive manner, they come lacking discipline, they come without really wanting to hear any objective truth, because they come with a particular mindset. They don't want to listen to opposing views. Very unchristian-like in their entire approach and attitude,
yes.
And in their mouthings as well, because some of them actually resort to cursing.
Yes.
So we want people in general, men in particular, to exhibit the kind of behaviors that will lead our boys to become men.
That's
so
right.
that these boys, as they grow up, would, as you said correctly at first, respect women, become good fathers, role models in the family, and become excellent workers in the employment sector, because men should be leading the way in each of these institutions.
That's right.
Men should be protectors and carers of women. I always say that men should use their hands to caress and to stroke women, not to strike,
That's right.
not to hurt or harm.
Right.
And of course, in the family, the man is called by the Creator himself to be the leader.
That's right.
Not to be the dictator, but to lead, to take charge, as it were. And in the workplace, men should always be the lead force. Men should be those employees upon whom the organization depend, in my books, more than the other species, the female of the species, for achievement and for growth and so on. Of course, women have their role to play.
Yes.
We cannot deny that. There's no question about that. But we are saying, I am saying, that men should really, in every facet and every institution, be the ones who are taking control and leading the way in the right and proper manner. So, the question of men can only do, or they suggested that only men who have a spiritual grounding can be good models and actually teach boys to be men, might not hold much water.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
I agree with that. And I think we, in that regard, we need to salute those guys. We need to give them thumbs up, because understanding that those distinct characteristics, as a matter of fact, that's part and parcel of the whole process of the boys' development. So we give them a thumbs up, and as a matter of fact, we join the team with them. They're not religious, but we join the team with them, and through whatever programs, continue to make sure that we all travel on that same path. And who knows, down the road, eventually the doors might be open for a change of mindset. But being inclusive, not in any way segregating ourselves from them, because of course, as you rightly said, there are distinct characteristics, and we must applaud them for it. So, in that regard, yes.
But I am one of those who always believe that when we see boys exhibiting certain behaviors, disrespecting their female counterparts, when we see boys getting involved in drugs and gangs, and when I say boys, I mean juveniles.
Yes.
When we see them up and down the roads right now doing all manners of folly, foolishness on their bicycles, I believe 99.9% of the cases is because there is no fatherly figure. There is no man, not male now, there is no man in their lives.
That's right.
To direct them into the correct paths. No man there to tell them, hey, this is what you should, kind of behavior you should engage in, these are the ones you should avoid. I really am convinced of that.
This is why I began with this quotation, tie a boy to the right man.
Right. Tie a boy, connect a boy, link a boy,
yes,
to the right man, and he never goes wrong. I agree with that.
Yes.
But the question is, there are so few right men. There are so few. And that's the lament which we have, that there is an excess of males, but a dearth, a scarcity, a shortage, a paucity of men. An abundance of males. I mean, we don't only be front. You find them lying, especially tonight on a Friday night.
Yes.
They're down there barking bad words and drinking cases of beer. And the language that flows, you really don't want your boys to be among them. No. You really don't. You go to the football matches, you go to the various sporting events, and the things that we see coming from, and the words that we hear flowing from the males are not constructive.
No.
They do not conduce to positive growth in our boys. So we have a superabundance of males. They almost approximate the same number of females. But in terms of men, what percentage of those males really exhibit the characteristics of manhood? And that is our challenge. And I want to suggest to you that how do we solve that problem going forward? Because a lot of the males today, I believe that their conduct is irreversible, that they're incorrigible in their behaviors. And only the intervention of Jesus Christ himself can change them. But for us to salvage the future, I believe we have to start with the children in school.
Yes.
And I've been saying for years, and will continue to say, we need to introduce what I call parenting education in schools. A subject called parenting, where all the implications, all the challenges, all the dynamics, all the benefits, the role and responsibilities of parents are taught and emphasized from grade 3 right up to 5th form. That is my view.
One of, and I'm happy you made reference to this idea, because one of my concerns as a pastor has been in our quote unquote the discipleship program. We needed to include into that program the program that would provide for our young men matters pertaining to marriage,
All of that.
the routine, the program as it is right now is only when you hear a couple getting married, then premarital counseling is given. I have been advertising and advocating this for some time. This must be included in the discipleship program. And I speak to that issue as in regards to, when persons are about to be baptized and so on.
Yeah.
We take them through, the what you call the commitments of the church. We needed to include that into that program. So by the time they reach young adults, they would have already been on that path, understanding marriage life and so on, although they're not yet married, because they would have been exposed to that kind of knowledge.
I'm expecting someone to some folks to call us here on Frank and Candid this morning and talk to us, share with us what your views are, or any other matter, of course, but we'd like you to focus on what we are presenting today. 465-2555, of course, is the number. Pastor Paul, is there any agency? Is there any support system? Is there any facility which males who recognize that they are not being men, if they want assistance in making that transformation, in raising the bar, as it were, and moving from malehood to manhood, is there any, what's in place for them to access in order to get the requisite assistance and guidance and advice and so on?
And you speak outside of the church?
No, I'm including the church. Anything, anywhere.
Okay. I think
bearing in mind that we cannot, there are some churches whose leaders we cannot in any good conscience seriously recommend, because they, like I said before, they record as one of shame and scandal.
Yes.
So there are some so-called church leaders who will certainly themselves need to be pushed in a certain direction, because they need to change their behaviors. But generally the question is, what and where can
and this is why
an individual go or do?
This is why we ought to be creative, understanding, of course, that some men will never go into the church. Some men will never enter the church.
Right, okay.
And therefore, one, we can, again, from a community standpoint, men who are on the path and really understand the vision and who are willing to make that commitment, volunteer, and we come together and we organize, certain quote-unquote programs for these men. Whether we want to give the ministry a name or what, we can likewise, it can be from a sort of neighboring or neighborly sort of
region.
Where a few neighbors coming together, start something small, and then the husbands or the men in that neighborhood come together. We start from there, and then we sort of.
We do have a problem. One, most of the, if not all, well, I don't think it's all, but by far the vast majority of counselors are females, and I do not believe that any female can tell a male how to be a man. I don't think that's possible. The second thing is, we have what we call a men's council. The men's council has been around for 4 years, and it has constantly been imploring men to become a part of it, encouraging men to support the organization, so that it becomes strong enough to be able to offer these kinds of services. And the men have not been turning out. The men have not been responding in the positive. I know the council has been to churches, they've been here on radio, almost all the radio stations, and we've been on Min FM, we've been on Freedom, we've been on Sugar City, we've been here on ZIZ, employing men to join, become a part of the society, the council, If they don't want to actually attend meetings physically, at least we know that they're there. We can depend on them, for different types of interventions.
Yes.
But it's just not happening. And I'm wondering why. I am really wondering. We had a lecture this a couple of nights ago, for example, on COVID-19 and men. How COVID is affecting men separately and apart from boys or from children or women. And the men did not turn out. Although we promoted it quite a bit and so on. But as someone said, if it was something to do with another kind of activity, something to do with music or something to do you're going to talk about women, they would turn up in the numbers.
Maybe we need to.
So we really have an issue on our hands.
Maybe we need to sort of mix it up a bit. At least to some degree where. At least to some degree where we can sort of insert that package. Maybe it is too. I don't know how to describe it. Mix it up a bit. Like I do in St. Paul, for example. I have a men's ministry in St. Paul's. And for example, every Father's Day, except this year gone because of the
course, naturally.
Bring them together on Father's Day, community men's breakfast, and in that setting, then the message goes out.
As far as you're aware, do churches have active men's groups, men's fellowship, men's ministries?
Some do. And this is why
I've never seen or heard of any of that.
It's why I alluded to the fact that we need to take a second look at our vision, because much of the ministries, men's ministries, they're weak, they're lost, and therefore we need to really take a second look at the vision and really and ask ourselves the question: do we know what we're about?
It's really sad, and I don't believe we can continue like this forever. COVID has now dictated a number of changes in our outlook, in our behaviors, and so on. And I would like to see again men taking the lead in this scenario, right? Where men would deploy the kinds of behaviors and be saying the kind of things that not only assures and reassures society, but would lead us in the proper direction. And I'm talking about at the political level, because the political leaders have their own role to play.
That's right.
And who knows, our next prime minister might be a female.
That's right.
So it doesn't really, we're not looking at the political leadership. We're looking at men in general, because the political leadership is a small number. But men are out here in much larger numbers,
That's
of course.
right.
So I think that's where we have to go. So we really need to begin, however, to consider changes in our boys. I am not satisfied that the future looks bright based on the behavior of boys in Sinkage in general. Well, females too, tell the truth, but since we're talking about boys, I am not one of those who would like to say, because I see one boy or 5 boys doing well, and I use that to gauge the future.
Right.
So those who say that, they shouldn't be vexed with me if I say I'm looking at the other 95 boys.
That's right.
And engage in the future does not look bright.
That's right.
If you think that because 5 boys are doing well, that the future looks bright, how about the other 95 who are not doing well? Do we have legitimacy in saying that the future does not look bright?
Right.
And I'm not happy. I see these boys coming from school and going to school. I see how they carry themselves, their uniforms, how they talk, how they cross the street, how they relate to one another, how they react to the females, their female peers. And I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied that they're on the right track at all. And of course, don't talk about trying to intervene in a positive way to give advice. Excuse me, youngster, this is not the best way to do this and so on, especially in public. And of course, you know what you're going to get.
Yes.
Generally. And you can't complain to their parents, because by and large, your parents will support them.
That's right.
Right? You feed them, you help me raise them.
Right.
So, mind your own business, go raise your own child. That kind of thing. But we can't give up.
No, we can't.
We can't give up.
We can't.
Well, time is up, however.
As
So
I said,
just a final word from you in 30 seconds.
Okay, I want to close by encouraging those who are on that path, and I want to invite those who have yet to come on stream to join the circle.
Very well. I support that call, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening to Frank and Candid, even though you didn't call us. We believe that you were listening and you are concerned about the condition of our boys today. Have a great weekend. Remember, do the right thing. And of course, trusting in Christ and serving Him is one of the better ways of doing the right thing. Have a great weekend. See you next week.